Hey, welcome back to Wheels and Things. Today we're going to give my new-to-me Fiat 500 Abarth an oil change. When I got her, I checked the dipstick and it looked like the oil was a little bit low and probably hadn't been changed at the dealer that I bought it from. The sticker on the window says it needs an oil change pretty soon, so we're just going to go ahead and do it, give her a fresh change of oil. So let's go ahead and open up the hood. Probably the cutest little hood prop you've ever seen. Right there. All right, so I've already gotten her warmed up, so she should be good to dig into and see if we can get the oil changed. Based on what I've read before, looks like the air inlet here from the turbo to the engine needs to come off for us to get a good swing at the oil filter. So we'll see what we need to do. Before we get started, I do want to give a quick shout out to alldatadiy.com. I was looking for information on how to do oil changes and beyond on this car, and the official Mopar service data is prohibitively expensive, over $200 for multiple sections of the manual that you'd need for the repair manual from Fiat Chrysler, or whatever they're called now, Stellantis. So that was prohibitively expensive, so I looked at monthly subscriptions, and we're still talking hundreds of dollars a month to be able to access the official Mopar repair data for this. So All Data DIY is made for people working on one or two cars, and you can purchase subscriptions to just the cars that you have, so you don't have to get like all Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Mopar, whatever cars at the same time. You can just pay for one car at a time, and you can buy a month, a year, or 5-year subscription. So it ends up being a pretty good deal. It's about $30, I think, for the first car for a year, and then after that, each additional car is only $20. That being said, it was great to find repair data for this car. But some newer cars aren't on there, so I assume that the way it works is that the newer cars are kept off of there by the manufacturers so that you can take them to the dealer and get them serviced. But after they get old enough, they get put on here. Just for reference, I was not able to find my 2015 Subaru Outback or 2018 Toyota Tacoma, the other vehicles that I own, on there. So it seemed like pre-2015 Subarus were on there, and second-gen Tacomas were on there, but not the third-gen Tacoma and not the last two generations of Subaru. So I'm hoping that soon the 5th-generation Outback will get added and I can start working on that one, because it's getting up there in miles, and taking it to the dealer is starting to become a little bit more than it's worth. So just wanted to give a shout out to alldatadiy.com. Really saved me a ton of money, and so far everything looks great on there. I'm going to reference that data while doing this oil change. All right, so the first step is warm the car up. We've already done that. Next thing is, they say leave it level, start taking the engine cover off. So that's what we'll do next. All right, I just learned an important lesson there. It's an 8mm and way easier to use a ratchet or a nut driver than trying to use a flathead. Found the engine air filter. It's got a little bit of dirt in it. I should probably change this soon, but I'm not going to do that today. The oil filter lives right down here, so it looks like we should be able to get to it. So some people suggest removing the air. This is the air intake. But let's see if we can use a universal and get to it without doing that. While this is certainly overkill, the only 27mm socket I have is for a 1/2-inch drive, and this is the 1/2-inch drive that I have. So I've got the socket on there. It would be better if this wasn't a deep socket for like an impact deep socket. It'd be much better to have a short socket, but I think I can get it off. So one of the downsides to this is Fiat tells you that when you loosen this oil filter cap, which you need to do before you try to drain the oil, because it won't all come out apparently, oil is going to come out of the filter housing. So basically, you need to jam some rags down there as well. So I'm going to go do that before I get all this ready to come off. All right, so I've changed my mind. I'm not going to try to take this filter housing off because I have an oil extractor, and I'm going to give that a go first. The instructions that come on All Data DIY are telling me that if you're going to drain it out of the bottom, you need to basically open the filter so that is able to drain out, so the suction doesn't keep it from draining. But I'm going to suck the oil out first, and then I'm going to open it up, hopefully making a smaller mess. Oil's right at the bottom, a little bit dark, but not opaque. We're going to try to extract it out. All right, she's set up to evacuate. We're supposed to get 4 quarts out, so we'll see how we do. And then hopefully we don't have to pull the drain plug. So I'm used to cars that take OW20. I might not have warmed this up enough. We'll see what we can get done. This 5W40 is taking a little bit longer than the OW20. It's pumping slowly, so we'll let that wait for now and come back and see how we did. Okay, as I'm sitting here waiting for this oil to drain, looks like we've got maybe half of it. I've been looking at this oil filter, and I do have to pull it out to put the new filter in. The filter housing has to be pulled out. So there's enough space to get it loose, but I just don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it out through this small hole without removing this. So I think that's why this is suggested to be removed. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that. Well, that was actually fairly simple. Couple clamps, and these little hoses were quite easy to pull off. This one has a quick release, and this one's just a very small barb. I'm actually quite pleased at how easy that came off, so it seems like it's kind of meant to be done that way. So taking that one piece off doesn't really give me that much more space, but I honestly don't want to take off the turbo inlet hose because the turbo is still kind of hot, but it's flexible, and I think I'll be able to get the filter housing out through there now without much difficulty. All right, so after about 10 to 15 minutes of waiting for this oil to come out, I definitely should have warmed it up more, but now I'll know next time. We have about somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 1/4 quarts in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen up this oil filter and see if we can find the rest of it. If I get to 3 1/2, 3 3/4 quarts, I'll be pretty satisfied. Don't feel like I need to lift it up and pull the drain plug. I'll probably do that on the next oil change just to make sure there's not a bunch of gunk in the bottom, but let's see if we can get some rags jammed down there so that it doesn't create a big puddle on the floor when I open the oil filter. Seems like a poor design. Unfortunately, this is kind of done by braille. You can't have your arm in there and see at the same time. Kind of got a feel for it. All right, I found the filter housing this time. Let's see if I can get it in the right spot. Nope, that's still on top of the filter housing. All right, I think I got it where I want it. I'll be honest, I'd really hate to be a Fiat tech. The data says that you're supposed to be able to do this job in about half an hour. I'm sure if you pull the drain plug, the oil would certainly drain faster, but doing this part would certainly leave me dirty and with some cut hands. So let's see if this fancy extension can get the housing off, or if I'm going to have to do something else. So far so good. It might get caught by the drip pan. All right, let's dive in there and get this thing off. Oh no, rookie mistake. It turned easily with the ratchet, but did have a pretty long lever arm, and I can't turn it by hand now. Have to get the ratchet back in there. So you can do this. You're definitely going to need a universal. I would probably recommend get something 3/8. It doesn't take that much torque to get it undone. You're not supposed to torque it very hard. I think it's like 25 Newton meters. But get a shallow socket and a universal, and you'll be good to go. All right, get some paper towels ready. So yeah, give it quite a few turns before you start loosening it by hand. Now it's totally doable by hand. Well, it's a really tight fit by leaving this turbo hose clamp on there. I'm not even sure I can get it. I definitely need to take this off. There's really just no way around it. All right, quickly trying to take, of course, this is going to be difficult to get to. Okay, so I don't have an 8mm box wrench handy. The 3/8 inch ratchet with the 1/4 inch adapter and universal is too long to fit in there, so hopefully the 1/4 inch ratchet will be the trick. All right, that wasn't too hard to take off, except getting the ratchet on this clamp was just a pain. I finally got it with a 1/4 inch ratchet, a universal, and an 8mm. So it comes off pretty easily. A little bit damp in there. It makes me think I'm getting a little oil blow by. So, and now the oil filter housing comes out easily. So, yep, you do have to take all that stuff off. There's really no way around it. And I'll be honest, this oil filter looks filthy. Although I don't see shiny stuff in it, which makes me feel good. So here's our new oil filter, got it on Amazon. It says it's for Fiat and Abarth, so hopefully it's the right part number. It's always the fun part. So it comes with an O-ring and a filter, as I would expect. All right, let's get the old O-ring off. All right, got the old O-ring off, and we'll throw the new one on. There's a little bit of old oil sloshing around in there, so we'll make sure to get that out. It looks like we didn't quite get the last half quart. I think the real test will be when we put the new in to see if it really takes 4 before the dipstick is full. It could have just been low on oil. It's at the very bottom of the dipstick. And so depending on if that means it's a quart low, this could be all the oil. I definitely fished around in there a bit with the hose, try to get it all, but yeah. So for the Fiat, we're going to use Amazon Basics Full Synthetic 5WB40. It's the European formula. So yeah, I guess it's good for Euro cars. No, but in all seriousness, I think Amazon Basics Oil is probably just rebranded from another major oil manufacturer. Not sure which one, but I've seen people say good things about it, and you should check out Project Farm. He does testing on oil. So I'm pretty comfortable using Amazon Basics. Plus, this is a cheap car, so happy to put a little less expensive oil in there, but 5W40. All right, let's throw the new O-ring on there. It's much more pliable than the one I took off. Stick the new filter in. So it should click into the top. Yep, so now it's held in there and it'll go in correctly when I screw this thing back on. Let's lubricate the seal. So put some fresh oil all around the seal. That way it goes on nice and smooth and there's no binding or pinching of the seal. All right. Oh, wow. So good thing I put the rags down there. They definitely absorbed a lot of oil. And there's actually some down in the bottom of the oil filter housing. I'm going to use the evacuator to suck that out before I put this in. All right, I'll pull the rags out and I'll put this guy back in. Yeah, absorbed quite a bit of oil. Didn't realize that, so definitely something you should do. All right, let's wipe the dipstick off, put it back in. So one downside to All Data DIY, while I did choose specifically the Abarth turbo engine, the oil change information doesn't really account for the turbo. The diagrams and the steps that they have just show you being able to reach down there and grab the oil filter out, but with the turbo right here and the turbo inlet tubing, that's not really possible. So we've done everything correctly. We got the filter housing back on, we lubed it with oil. So basically, I'm gonna go ahead and put everything together, then dump the oil in, and then we'll start her up, see if there's anything leaking. So thankfully, this is kind of idiot-proof. There's obviously, there is the possibility that I could have put this on backwards, but everything is indexed, and the clamps are held in place by these rubber nubs. So it looks like it's pretty idiot-proof, and so I'll be able to get this back on no problem. Okay, so the turbo inlet air intake is all put back together. Pretty simple with the 8mm ratchet, you can do everything. It was really nice. All the parts have indexing tabs, and the hoses, one of these lines here, I'm not sure exactly what this line is. I think this one's vacuum, but this one's quick release. This one's really easy to pop back on. 1, 2, 3 8mm connections. 1, 2, 3 8mm screws. What's interesting is the air filter actually lives as a part of this engine cover, so it just kind of slots in the back. All right, so gonna go grab a funnel and we'll put some oil in her. So while this is going in, I had a little bit of a spill. According to All Data DIY, the service bulletin for oil burn on Fiat 500 models is that high mileage cars, I don't remember exactly what that threshold was, but mine's a high mileage car, can burn up to a quart every 750 miles, and that is still in spec. So I heard a rule of thumb that generally from the low level to the high level on the dipstick is 1 quart. I don't know if that's true or if there's anything that specifies that, so if you know, leave a comment. So it looks like we're right at the top now, so that would lead me to believe that, well, 2 things. 1, this dipstick is almost a quart from bottom to top, and 2, there may be a little bit of oil left in the bottom of the pan that we didn't get. So this car may not work well with an oil evacuator. We'll have to drain all the oil next time and see what happens, drain it out the bottom. So let's make sure we got all our tools out and everything's hooked up. So this thing's hooked back up. This is tight. This is tight. These hoses are back on. This is tight. Oil filter housing looks good. Oil cap, dipstick back on. Didn't leave any tools or flashlights poking around. Looks good. Let's open up the garage and start her up. Well, I'm happy to say that didn't find any leaks, no major flashing warning lights or anything that would indicate that there's no oil. Oil level looked good on the dipstick before I started it, so we'll definitely have to check it tomorrow and see if some of that oil got pushed into the filter and it needs more, or if it's just good as is. So thanks for tuning in. Got the first little bit of maintenance done, and yeah, tune in next time to Wheels and Things. We've got more maintenance to do. We'll talk a little bit more about the car itself, and yeah, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Have a good afternoon.